Good evening. This is a Town of Ayer Zoning Board of Appeals, Wednesday, January 17th, 2023, 6 p.m. hybrid meeting agenda. This meeting / hearing of the Zoning Board of Appeals will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and our participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting / hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. Public may access proceedings by joining Zoom meeting ID 857-9728-7177 or by calling 312-626-6799. For additional information about the remote participation, please contact Samantha Benoit, Administrative Coordinator at zba@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114 prior to the meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda of Wednesday, January 17th, 2023.
2024?
That's right, 2024.
Oh.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Caught up.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of agendas posted. Second item on the agenda is a continued public hearing application for special permit North Country Developers, LLC. Ayer ZBA will conduct a public hearing at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, November 15th, 2024.
Well, that was 23.
It says 23, but I changed it.
Yeah.
No, this is not even Wednesday. This
This was when it was
it
originally
was
to be.
originally done, that's right,
Correct,
okay.
We've continued.
So let's try that again. Ayer ZBA will conduct a hybrid public hearing at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, January 19th, 2024 at the Ayer Town
17th.
Hall. Huh?
17th.
Is it really?
It is. I wish I could fast forward to the end of the week too, though.
Yeah.
It's okay, boss.
I'm going to leave that alone. Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, regarding application submitted by North Country Developers, LLC, for property located at 71 Sandy Pond Road, Ayer, Mass. Applicant is seeking a special permit pursuant to Ayer zoning bylaw, section 5.2.1.2, table of use regulations, residential units, users, to allow two-family dwellings in the A2 district. For more information, including Zoom call-in information, please contact zba@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114. Advertised October 27th, 2023, and November 3rd, 2023, in the Neshoba Valley Voice. You are, sir?
My name is Kevin Conover. I'm from David Ross Associates. And I
Okay.
represent North Country Developers, LLC.
Yeah, we have your letter. Yes, sir.
Yep. This is a continuation of a meeting that we had, I believe it was in November.
Yes, sir.
We discussed the project. The
No,
project.
sir.
What? We did.
Well, we talked about it some, and then it got to the point where we said, well, you guys go get the A&R. So we did go over some of the, so a quick recap and
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, no worries. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
I presented this project back in November. It's a proposal for 2 duplex lots on 2 lots situated on the southerly side of Sandy Pond Road at the corner of Snake Hill Road. As the site plan, as we presented originally shows, the property is located, has some wetlands issues where the proposed work is going to be within the buffer zone. An order of conditions has been approved by the Conservation Commission and has been submitted to our client. At the last meeting, everything was going well, and one of the comments from the town planner was that an A&R plan was not signed at the time of that presentation of the plan. Since that time, at the end of November, an A&R plan was signed and endorsed by the planning board, dividing the property into 2 lots. Each lot is in excess of 24,000 square feet. I think I provided Samantha with copies of that A&R plan. I have copies here if you need them. So that plan has not been recorded at the registry yet. We're probably going to record that at the same time the order of conditions is recorded and any zoning board of appeals decision that is approved on this property. Like I said, we're just proposing 2 duplex lots on 2 lots in excess of 24,000 in accordance with the use regulations in the town and the dimensional regulations in the town. So we're seeking a special permit approval for the creation of these 2 duplexes.
Where on Sandy Pond Road? Is that the one across from the beach?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. There was an existing there is an existing 2-family house there now that was served by a private septic system, which we weren't aware of until we got into the project. Both of these units will be tying into town sewer. We've been in contact with both the engineer and the DPW about how best to do that, and our plans reflect the results of those discussions. So the septic system will be abandoned, and with the Board of Health being involved in that as well.
Do you dig the tank up or just leave it in place?
Excuse me?
You dig the tank up or you leave it in place?
We usually just crush it. Well, I don't do that.
No, I get it.
They usually just crush it, and if there's any contaminations where the bed is, that'll have to be removed and disposed of properly. Depends what kind of system it is. Like I said, I didn't even know that there was a system on the lots. It could be an old cesspool, it could be a leach pit. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's not advantageous to this project or to the town in general, being so close to the wetlands. So again, we've talked to DPW and town engineer about how to connect those 2 units to the existing sewer, which is right in front of the property. That's the proposal there. So the A&R has been signed. Like I said, I have copies if you need it. Are there any questions?
Anybody?
So you say that to allow 2 family dwellings, so each lot will have 1 2-family dwelling?
That's correct.
So I noticed on the responses from the town departments, this tax bill, and I was just curious as to why the tax bill is not in the name of the owner.
So I think I addressed that last time, and I had to get confirmation from the assessor from that as well as my client is. First of all, the back taxes or any taxes that are owed have been paid. So the reason it was under the previous owner is because it was for a certain quarter or a certain period of time within the town, within the year, last year, that was not owned by the client. So that's why it's still under their name.
And it's not uncommon. Have your clients purchased this property? Is that the idea?
That's correct.
So
yeah.
usually, John, what happens is there's an assessment date. So if they purchased after January 1st, 23, for example, the entire FY24 bill that they get won't even say their name on it.
Yeah, well, I just thought that the name on the application should match the name on the tax bill.
And it will on July 1st.
Right. And that was a kind of a shock to my client too, because those tax bills were not going to him at his address, they were going to the previous owner at a different address. So he wasn't even aware of the taxes that were due. So once he was made aware of that, I think within a day or 2, he was in the assessor's office and he paid those.
I thought those were cleared off at a closing.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
But what I think probably happened here, because it's, like I said, it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
A new deed comes in, depending on where it's filed. Sometimes it doesn't get sent to the town right away. There are also sometimes you just miss one. My guess is that we didn't update the ownership information before the assessment date. And then, yeah, they just kept sending the bill to the previous owner.
Right,
and it does happen.
And looking at the total, it was only for about $1,000, so it appeared to be either a quarter or a third of the year. It wasn't an entire year. I can't assume that taxes would only be $1,000 per year, but I really don't know. But I think that's the
If
reason.
so, I want it. Yeah.
Exactly, that's what I mean. So I think it may have been for a certain time, but again, that's above my pay grade.
So you don't have any issues with parking spaces? You have the required number and the whole 9 yards?
That's correct. And again, we talked to DPW and the town engineer about best to handle that. We're actually reducing the amount of impervious that's there right now, and that was all approved by the Conservation Commission. We're adding some greenery adjacent to the wetlands on the westerly side of the property. So
Pretty big paved lot out front.
Boy, is it.
it is. So there's a lot of impervious there, not only between the building and the parking that is there. So once it got all cleaned out, it was amazing how much is actually there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that you couldn't see.
So these two duplexes, they're going to be under some property management thing, or is it, they're going to be sold to individuals?
They're going to be sold to individuals.
Because, you know, in the notes, they talk about trash management plan and all this other stuff, but that's going to be up to the owners that actually buy the houses themselves.
Absolutely. You know, dumpsters are probably not a good idea when they're duplexes. I think individual homeowners should be responsible for their own waste and management of that.
So how does that actually work? It's one piece of property with two separate owners. Do they lease the land that the houses are on?
Correct. So they'd be considered, I'm using the word condominiums, but they would take ownership of a portion or half of the unit. And the attorneys write up the documents that each homeowner would be responsible for the maintenance, the use of that certain unit. And there probably could be an association as well that are responsible for plowing and maintenance of the property as well. Again, that's with the attorneys, and it could be done either way.
Okay, thank you.
Ron?
How many plans or elevations of the,
I do, I think I might have submitted those originally. I don't have them with me.
The only one I remember seeing was a plot plan.
no elevations?
I haven't seen any, no. All I saw was a plot plan.
I might have some with me if you give me the time to look through the package of information that I have.
Why do you need that, Ron?
I'm concerned that we're going to have two towering duplexes here in an area.
Two-story, no?
Yeah, they're two-story, but they have a height requirement in the town, and they'll definitely be within that.
Yeah, there was no request for a permit on height, so.
No, but they are taller than
There's a lot of two-story houses out there.
these.
Within one?
They're anything like the duplexes,
Where?
modern duplexes down on Marshall Street here. They're pretty big building.
Those are actually well within the
How would
height
they compare?
requirement, yeah. The only ones that jump out at me are the ones on Shaker Lane, going toward the golf course. Those are sticking up out of the ground a little bit, but that's all because of the groundwater that was encountered on that property. But again, there's a height requirement in the town, and they'll be within that.
Jess?
You know, I'd love to say yes, but I'm still stuck on I'm concerned also. Two buildings on that lot, even though it's, the 24,000 is partly added to by the wetland piece that goes way back, but, you know, we do have, it's my population density issue that I mentioned at the last meeting. And it's an established neighborhood. I know there are some duplexes, but in keeping with my rationale on the Grove Street one, I am not in favor of this. Second reason, in terms of, you know, and I've heard from a number of residents on this, is we still do have water restrictions because the town filtration can't keep up with demand given the PFAS filters. And I've had a number of people say, why is the town giving more building permits when we can't meet the needs currently of residents without these restrictions? And for me, here, this is doubling the density on the lot, on the 2 lots now. In the
Unnecessarily.
area.
So when they did these notes, they said that this was going to go before the conservation on 10/26. Did that happen?
That's happened, but that was a very different type of review process. So by conservation's criteria, there's not that much work in the, affecting the wetlands.
You're suggesting, though, that the wetlands that are included into the total square footage is
Well, no, I mean-
unbuildable?
Well, yeah, that.
So
but-
does that in fact affect the footage of the lot?
No, I'm just
It
saying,
doesn't-
even though each lot has 24,000, a lot of that is, but my issue is mainly the density and then current water.
So in terms of the density, Samantha Lane is a duplex subdivision where every house within Samantha Lane is a duplex. There's a Cannon Gate, which is right across the street. This proposal is extremely consistent with the neighborhood.
So why continue to increase the density? Just because there's pre-existing things.
Well, there's a pre-existing two-family dwelling on that lot right now. And in terms of the water restrictions, I'd like to know where you get that information, because I've heard conflicting information on that. That
Signs,
there's plenty of
Yeah.
science.
there's signs all over the town.
Signs.
Water
In the
restriction.
middle of the
Okay.
winter.
Yeah.
Okay, but why?
No end in sight.
Well, we put in these big PFAS filters a few years ago. That's reduced the amount of water that can be pumped through, available at any particular time. So they have, I think they're planning down the road several years, or
So
whatever, to put in.
wouldn't that issue have been brought up by the DPW and the town engineer that's saying that there isn't a capacity for water for these two?
You would think so.
Well, there's
think so.
enough for an
There's
increment like this,
capacity,
but
yeah.
to continue at this
Yeah.
pace of
Well, again, so
more density than is zoned for them.
again, we're just looking at this proposal. We're not looking at something that may come down the road this year or next year.
Well,
True.
we can stop at any time.
True.
Okay.
And there, you have the right, the applicant has the right to appeal this and
Yes.
probably would overturn it, but right now, I'm just in a mode of, unless there's like affordable housing component that's a benefit to the town, Ayer's population density is high compared to every town around us, and
The upper 25% of all the towns in Massachusetts.
right, and years ago, we were highlighted in the Boston Globe as approaching build-out. And so now I think, I feel like until residents generally can provide more feedback on this, I just feel like my role is partly to act as a braking mechanism from this move that seems to be happening in a lot of places of taking a lot, subdividing it, and now putting in duplexes on each lot. And there are areas in town I'm more in favor of, but
Well, let me
yeah.
ask a question. Would you be more comfortable if they were single-family homes on those 2 lots?
I would have no ability
It's a right.
to object to that.
Well, no, that's not what I asked.
Yeah, and also, Cannon Gate is situated pretty far back from the road. This would be,
I don't know where Cannon Gate is.
It's the condo development right across the street.
yeah, right across, so there's a town beach.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
you don't
didn't know
really-
that name, okay.
Yeah, and this corner would be very built up, much
Yeah.
more than it's now, and
So first of all, the abutting towns, they have zoning regulations in terms of lot size and lot frontage that makes them not as dense, the density is not as large. Ayer has zoning regulations that have been in place probably since I've been doing this, since the 80s, that dictated the frontage and area requirements, both single-family lots and for duplex lots. So I'm assuming that when those bylaws were enacted, they took into account the density requirement of having the lots twice the size of an original lot. So in terms of a density, I could, cut these lots down to 12,000 square feet and put a large house on it. It's the same, it's going to be the same thing. And if we do a by right, those houses will be a lot larger in terms of their size than the duplexes that are shown here. I mean, these duplexes are only about 42, 46 feet wide, and most two-family houses now, as you know, are at least 70 feet long. So in terms of the density, I see your point, but there are regulations in place that allow this. And again, this is in a neighborhood that has duplexes, up and down the street. There was one approved that I did on Sandy Pond Road less than a year and a half ago, then in the same neighborhood. I understand your point, but in this case where the abutting properties have duplexes on them, this is, the part of the requirement is the special permit, is it consistent with the neighborhood? Absolutely, absolutely. So that'd be just my response to that.
Mike?
Yeah, so first, I'll start by saying I am in favor of this project. I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I know we had the discussion about density and it went on at some length. Mr. Diskin, who's in the audience, spoke to the density issue and frankly said that the town needs more density to increase affordability for housing. But beyond that, we've gone through our rules and regs over the last few meetings, and Sam had put together this what to consider in a special permit document. And, when I look at it, I can't see one of the 6 questions where, outside of potentially number 5, does this impact the natural environment? But you've gotten in order of conditions?
That's correct.
So I'll just go through it and give you my thoughts. Social, economic, or community needs served by the proposal. I do think having more housing is good in terms of affordability. Economic, I think, let's face it, the property that's there right now, in most cases, would be considered blight.
True.
It's very rundown.
Has been for years.
Now, does that mean blight is a reason to grant a special permit? No, but I do think it improves the property. Impact of traffic flow and safety. The traffic flow, yeah, you're going to have, 2 additional units, but one does come out onto Snake Hill Road, the other does come onto Sandy Pond. So
I wouldn't think you'd have any more traffic than you would at the beach during the summer.
well, yeah, I agree, but you could argue that currently it's a 2-family. You're going to add 2 more units, but 2 3-bedroom units, at most, you're probably going to have 2 more cars per unit, so 4 more cars on a road that's pretty heavily traveled anyways. Are there adequate utilities and public services? So when we start talking about the water, the PFAS and everything else, I tend to agree with Kevin. If we didn't have adequate utilities to serve this project, Dan would have said something.
Nobody would have told us.
On top of that, I wasn't here for it, but I heard at the last meeting, it sounds like the project on West Main Street, had withdrawn their application at that time. I don't know if anything's changed since. But, that was 150 plus units of housing that, at least for now, is off the table.
That's true.
So if we could serve that, I feel like we could serve this. Neighborhood character and social structures. It's no secret, I was the one who thought this was what held up the one on Snake Hill Road a couple of years ago. And in truth, while I was the only one who supported it, I think at the end, I can see why at that time we'd say it didn't fit the character. Because truly, that's further enough down that you're on Sandy Pond, and that is a
Yes.
neighborhood of single-family
Yes.
homes. So
Yes.
I was in the minority, but I do see why you would say that. Here, I have to agree. Samantha Lane, right there, it is a street of 2 families. We approved the one closer to the Rotary. again, that's further down the street, so we did approve them, but if you told me that wasn't the same neighborhood, I could see why. Just like the one further down Snake Hill Road, I could see you saying it's not the same neighborhood. But with this one, I really think a two-family would fit here, and it is right across from Canongate. Natural environment, I do think they've addressed it, but, I'm not an expert on conservation. And is there a potential fiscal impact on town services, the tax base, or employment? I can't tell you that these 4 units are going to provide us with residents who are going to work in town. I in fact doubt it.
I doubt it, yeah.
But impact on town services, you could say, well, it's more ambulance calls, whatever else. But the tax base, again, I don't think it's a surprise that 2 new two-family buildings are going to bring in more tax revenue than what's there, and maybe not more than 2 single families, because generally they probably produce more tax revenue, but it's good for the tax base. And if we are going to have to make further improvements to the utilities in town to deal with the water issue we have, which I wish would go away, but I don't think it will, spreading it out across more parcels, I think is a good thing. And density's tough, but, we have a need for affordable housing. And losing 150 units,
I'm assuming these are market value?
oh, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not big A affordable, but,
Oh.
economics say more supply should bring down the price. So, again, I'm in support of it, but, I bring this up because, like I said, we've spent the time going through these documents. If we're going to use them, we should use them. But that's it.
Got something on your mind, Rob?
No, nope, I was just looking at the weighting of these factors. They are factors.
They are factors, that
Yeah,
that is true.
It's true.
It's still the,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment if this is an appropriate time.
By all means.
I'd like to speak about the character of this street. I drive up and down it quite a bit, and you have at the one end by where Willow branches off, you have the industrial district. And then you turn onto Sandy Pond and you see single-family homes. It's an older neighborhood. Most of those homes have been built in the 70s. And as you drive down the street, there's been a couple newer homes built close to the church that are single-family homes. And then you drive down the street, and granted, there's Canongate, which was built in the 70s when condominiums were like a new and coming thing. And, I wasn't around then, so I can't speak to what the rationale behind allowing that huge condominium subdivision there. And Samantha Lane, not all of them are condominiums. There's 2 single-family homes on that street also. And the homes that are there tend to look like not duplexes. They tend to have like a single entrance. They look like family homes. So basically your property is really more surrounded by, with the exception of a couple of 2 Samantha Lane, single-family homes. It's also a very visible lot. It's like as you're traveling down the road, as you go closer to the intersection with the stop sign, it changes. But that little area here it tends to be single-family homes. And the lot where you are, it's very visible. And to put a duplex in there, it's going to be, it has, I know you have an adequate setback, but it's going to be a duplex, like right there.
2 duplexes.
2 duplexes. And to me, it just doesn't fit in the character. People that have moved there and lived there a long time have done like a single family home. I think it would affect the character of the neighborhood. And with this little area, I'm not against duplexes. I think they're great, and especially with the need for housing. But I think, do we have to squeeze as many houses as possible on a lot in every area of town? This is like a nice little neighborhood that you can drive through. And what also concerns me too is if we allow those duplexes there, you have a lot of property behind. You're not you, but you. What's going to happen to that? I mean, we've been told it's undeveloped at this point, but as in most property in Ayer, you know anything that's open is probably going to have some kind of development. And if we allow 2 duplexes right there, what's to prevent?
You can't do it.
What's to prevent it is they would have to come back here.
Yeah,
And-
but
and it-
The prevention.
I'm sorry, Sam, but I was the person who brought up the character thing the last time we did this, and I'll tell you, I regret it, because it's, especially here, we have 2 families. They may have been notified as abutters. That's how close Samantha Lane is to this property. I think if we try and stand on character on this one, it's wrong in this case. And again, I say that knowing that I was the only one who, at the end of the process, further down Snake Hill, was the one who was in favor of it. But I could see why I was wrong there. Here, I think character is not. I don't think it's a reason to deny this.
And let me just follow up. You mentioned on Samantha Lane, that house on the corner, that white house, that's a single family. That was there at the time that subdivision was done.
So it's existing.
Right, so it's an existing. And as you're driving further down that intersection with the stop sign like you're talking, yeah, there's a lot of older houses there, smaller houses, but there's also, right after Samantha Lane on the left, I think is a 4 or 5 family.
Well, the gray one set back off the road, I mean,
Exactly, then going down toward the intersection, there's a 3-unit apartment right in front of that beautiful red house that was just built. So there are, you talk about the character and consistent with the neighborhood. I agree, but, unless we put duplexes on every lot, duplex is going to be, an anomaly, I would say. So, but, I agree with Mike. I mean, Samantha Lane's right there, and all they were notified as abutters. In terms of the property behind, that's all wetlands. As Jess knows, when it was submitted to the Conservation Commission, that they walked it, and it's all wetlands, so you can't do anything with it either. So, and my client's attempt is to separate these 2 lots from anything that goes on there. His thought process, since it's all wetlands, you can't develop it anyway, maybe convey it to some of the neighbors, they can give it a little bit more buffer, or it's going to remain undeveloped, as far as I can see. There's really nothing you can do with it.
Well, speaking to the property you mentioned down the street, the gray building that's kind of set back, that is a real anomaly, I think, in anywhere in town. I mean, it was built in 1940. If you look at the tax record, it's classed as a possible 4 to 8 apartment.
Yeah.
It's got 11 bedrooms and 8 baths. It's like, it was obviously probably built like as a kind of a barracks or something. way
That's
back
what
when
a lot of the housing was in Ayer, was built for the fort.
But that I think is not typical of the area, the neighborhood. And granted, that will probably go at some point. And the other place you mentioned, the red house behind that has a little apartment in front.
Yeah, the 3-unit apartment.
It was a single-family home they put in there. They didn't put a duplex in there.
No, but there was an existing apartment in there. There's that white building in
Yeah,
front of that
that
is an
little- it's got-
existing. I was
yeah.
surprised that there are 3 units in there.
Yeah, me too.
But again, they dot Sandy Pond Road, they dot a lot of different places in town.
All right. Anybody else?
Public. We have to ask.
Pauline's got her hand up.
Pauline's got her hand up.
Yep.
I have my hand up too.
You did? I'm sorry, I didn't see you were behind.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I will be very quick, Mike, for you. I hope you will all, at least if you don't prove this tonight, look at the most recent water use report from DPW. We're meeting capacity with then some. As of, I think, the other day, like I would say within the last week, the most recent report was posted on the DPW website. I can't quote it for you today, but even it sounds like DPW was surprised that the supply of water is current and full and adequate. So that's one point, because I heard Jess speak about that. I know that 2001-2005 West Main Street is presently withdrawn, so that should weigh in on tonight's discussion. And as a former resident of Sandy Pond Road at Canongate, I would encourage the approval of this project because it's only going to improve that whole area. I knew the prior owner. He was a very nice man. He was very limited in what he could do. But I think North Country and its principals will do everything they possibly can to make the property better. And I know they have done other properties in Ayer. I don't know where they are right now, but I would encourage you, and I'm sorry other residents aren't here to do the same, I would encourage you to approve this project. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Thank you, Pauline.
isn't this time reserved for abutters instead of proponents of just town
No, it's
departments and
public.
things like that?
It's public.
Well,
Abutters first, but we don't have any abutters.
okay.
So it goes from abutters to public, correct? I'm sorry, Ken, you had something you wanted to add?
I wanted to be careful and wait as well. I just want to follow up on something that Ms. Schmellenberger said. You're not allowing this use. This use is allowed under the zoning. You're issuing a special permit for the use. There's quite a big difference. This is not a use that's not permitted. It is a permitted use because it's zoned at 24,000 square feet. And it says right in the zoning bylaws that if you can put a duplex on 24,000 square feet in that location in town in the A2 zone. So I was wanted to be careful with the wording that it isn't allowed use. If Carly were here tonight, I remember going to meetings with Carly and see how this little question would come up about is it allowed, is it not allowed, and whether it's a permitted use. It's a special permitted use under an allowed category. So I'm just making that, I'm not trying to argue about the point.
Got it, thank you.
And I was going to follow up a little bit on Pauline's comments, and I'm glad she mentioned the water. So I went on to the website for the DPW as well and looked at the water reports. And I'm not sure how many of us are aware of this, but 65% of the water use in the town of Ayer is basically between 3 or 4 customers in the industrial side.
Yep.
It's very small. It's only a 35% use on the residential side at this point in time. So the impact of 2 units on the millions of gallons of water that are used in town is literally unmeasurable. That's how
Minuscule.
tiny
I
it
get
is.
it.
And DPW certainly would have commented if there was going to be an issue with adding 2 units more than allowed under your single-family use to a 2-family use if the water were impacted. And on top of that, what's fascinating, and you guys know on the planning board, what's fascinating is we have permitted projects now which are going to include connection to water and sewer in the future, which will be already, some of which are already approved by this board, the 40B, which is going to ultimately have 100 and some odd units.
180 over on,
This project's coming, and there's unbuilt subdivisions that units have not been constructed on yet but are approved. So this project, in all probability, would be built even sooner than those projects because he's putting up 2 families. So they'll be ahead of the game. They'll have plenty of water and sewer when they come up to do their projects. Thank you very much.
thank you.
You have a comment.
Oh, you want a hand?
Jeff
Jeff
Tillotson.
Mr. Tillotson.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. How are you this evening?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm well, thank you. I'm interested to hear the conversation about the neighborhood that you've had, and I'm not sure if I can share a screen with you, but I've done a quick screenshot, and I've gone 1,000 feet back from the front, from the intersection of Sandy Pond Road to the railroad tracks. It's about 1,000 feet, 1,017 feet. And if you draw that out as a circle, what you discover is there are multifamilies east, west, and north of it, because there is a multifamily on Snake Hill Road at the corner of Old Sandy Pond Road. I'd be happy to share my screen if you'd like. I don't know if I can. I doubt it. But
Yeah, it's
in fitting with the character of the area, across the street you've got a recreational use. We do have single-family uses, but I bet you if I counted up all the little squares on the map I've got in front of me, they're just not out of character of that area. And thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I can share the screen. I doubt I can.
That's all
It's turned
right.
off.
I think we get it.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
And I'd just like,
Oh, by the way, this is Jeff Tillotson at 15 Oak Ridge Drive, Ayer.
Thank you, Jeff.
and I'd just like to follow up on Pauline's comment too about the developer here. His name is Brent Ruthier, and his father, Paul, has been in town forever. He lives in town, he's constructed in town, so he's not someone from outside trying to do something just for a profit. He actually just built a house on the corner of Marshall and Harvard Road that was approved by the ZBA about 2 years ago, right on the corner there. So he's a local, and he's familiar with the town more than probably most of us here.
Any further discussion?
Well, so just for clarity's sake, if this weren't to be approved, can this not be reapplied for 2 years?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And we need 4 out of 5.
Correct. Who's gonna make a motion? You, me?
I mean, I'll make it.
Go ahead.
But,
But what?
well, so I don't want to run into an issue where we're not giving an applicant an opportunity to withdraw but I'll make a motion all the same.
I respect your comment, Mike, and I'm on the fence with it as well. But I think, in the comments that I've heard so far, there's plenty of reasons to approve this. And there's very few, if any, to deny it. If this does get denied, I can't tell you what my client's gonna do, but if I was him, I would appeal it in hand, and they would get it. Like Jess said, they probably would appeal to the Attorney General, and the decision would be overturned.
Well,
I'd rather not get to that process.
right,
obviously.
and eventually I think it would just be remanded to us, so we'd be right back here. But, point taken, and frankly, an appeal, we're never going to consider that as part of our
Oh, I
our
understand,
decision. So-
but Jess brought it up.
But before I make a motion, again, I'm just going back to the considerations for a special permit.
Understand?
And I completely respect everybody's decision to vote however they see fit, but I really think this one fits. And if I had been here at the last meeting when we were discussing density, one of the things I would have brought up, again, was the improvement of some of these parcels in town. And to me, this project is an improvement of that parcel.
Any project would be an improvement with that parcel.
I agree, Ron, but this is the one in front of us.
Go for a supersized project. With one.
But we could have
Well,
two
it's a
5,000
one-family.
square foot homes that, are going to sell. Look at the stuff they tucked along the by Blue Northern there. I mean, those things are selling for $800,000. I mean, it's not affordable. They're lovely and they look great, but I mean, if one of the considerations is the social impact, I mean, and we're looking to develop more affordable, again, not big A, housing. I think this is one of the ways we do it. But again, that's just my opinion on it. All right. I make a motion to approve a special permit pursuant to Ayer zoning bylaw section 5.2.1.2, table of use regulations, residential uses, to allow two-family dwellings in the A2 district.
Second.
All those in favor, let's do this different. State your name and your vote, please.
John Ellis, aye.
Monte Filippo, no.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Jessica Gino, no.
Sam Goodwin, aye. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing for North Country Developers.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Samantha, you have to list the decision and
Do.
the, what was that word? What was the word?
Finding of facts?
Yeah. that's
Finding of facts, that's it, thank you.
Yep.
So what helps is those, on those cheat sheets, those questions, what helps is if I can just plug those in, but I need the justification as to why.
Sure.
You heard it.
Well, I think density, access to utilities.
Yes. If you're going to summarize it, it would be density and, you're right, utilities.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
And
actually
potentially
would, I would refer to Marilyn's point too. It's a very visible,
Character of neighborhood.
very
That's
visible
a
corner.
good point, yeah.
All right.
So,
Okay? All right, next item on the agenda.
Closed it.
We haven't closed
Closed
it.
it already?
Thought we did.
We haven't,
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
y'all voted to close it.
We voted to close it, yeah.
all right, Ken.
I was gonna ask to Jess, I couldn't hear what Jess said, I'm sorry, at the end, and she made the last remark about the decision.
oh,
I
just,
was interested in how you're gonna qualify the decision, how you're gonna write up the decision, and your
that's-
judgment of how it failed. That's what I'm interested in. How you're gonna word your decision.
Well, you should be able to read it when we're done.
The zoning.
So I think, again, we have this sheet and,
That's right in the zoning bylaws.
I know.
You just took it out of the zoning.
Nobody has a right to build a two-family house and
Right.
a one-family.
So Ken,
Special permit, you
And that-
have to give a
Yes.
logical reason for denying it.
the reasons that I think we're going to write up in our
Decision.
decision, from what I'm hearing, we have access to utilities, and the big one, I think, would be character of the neighborhood, that it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood. Again, Sam's going to publish it when she files it with the town clerk.
Thank you.
Get a
Yep.
copy.
I just couldn't hear it.
Was there something you wanted to say, Jess? No. Oh, I'm sorry, I know you were talking. All right. Next item on the agenda, are you all set, Samantha? Okay, thank you. Continued public hearing, application for special permit, Alexandria Goldenack.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is fine. Here, I'll move back.
No, I want to make sure that everyone can.
Do I need to read the public hearing notice again? All right, this is a continuation, public hearing notice. Ayer ZBA will conduct a hybrid public hearing at 6:48 PM on Wednesday, January 17th, 2024, Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, regarding an application submitted by Alexandria Goldenack for property located at 42 Park Street, Ayer, Mass. Applicant is seeking a special permit pursuant to Ayer zoning bylaw, section 7.3.b, to allow for the construction in the front setback. For more information, including Zoom call-in information, please contact ZBA at ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114. Advertised December 1st, 2023 and December 8th, 2023, Neshoba Valley Voice. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Justin LeClaire, McCarty Engineering, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. So just to, excuse me, just to orient everyone with the project and where it is. So this is 42 Park Street. This is the large existing building that was formerly the Cleaners, and Jiffy Lube is down here. So the applicant is seeking to construct a 2,000 square foot addition as well as remodel the existing two-family there. As many of you probably have driven by it, it's red, it's dilapidated, it's in no good condition. So
You lost me. You said, what Cleaners?
it used to be a Cleaners. I believe now it's like an antique store.
Like across from the laundromat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a large building across from the
That's a
laundromat.
Cleaners in front of the motorcycle place.
Yeah.
Correct. This is that red house, a little closer to downtown, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the red house right across from the laundromat.
Colonial.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem.
All right.
So, as part of the project, it's the applicant's intent to completely gut out the existing two-family and rebuild it inside and out. Resurface the facade, as well as construct 2,000 square foot addition. With that, we'll have the associated drive aisle with parking spaces and a parking field in the back. This plan's been in front of the plan board for site plan review as well as special permit for stormwater, and we received our approval from them on November 28th. As part of the final revisions going back and forth with the planning board regarding the architecture, the layout, the building commissioner gave a final review and determined that the new layout would require a special permit from ZBA under section 7.3 for the expansion within the setback. So the existing dwelling is here, and this dark brown here is the proposed addition. This lighter brown triangle piece here is why we're in front of you tonight. So based on the layout of the building, the construction of the foundation of the building, there's 35 square feet that is within the front setback, but behind the existing dwelling. And that is to connect the addition to the existing dwelling. We've looked at other options to get around this, but that would entail a higher building cost because you're building in irregular shape. So now you have an irregular foundation, and structurally it's not as ideal as a nice rectangle.
So what's it gonna just be, an empty space?
So the first floor, with this building all connected, the first floor is going to be a commercial space. Ideally, the business going in there will be a salon. The upper stories will be apartment units. I believe 2-bedroom?
2-bedroom, 1-bathroom.
Units above. So with all this being connected on the first floor is the commercial space, it will be used. But again, it didn't make sense to cut off half of the building to be within the setback, just to square everything off. And as I said, it's 35 square feet. We believe it's a de minimis impact. And in addition, we're not encroaching closer to Park Street than what the existing house already is doing.
So what is the existing setback?
2.7 feet.
It is on Park Street.
I know. So, but you're not changing that.
We're not changing the front.
Right, so you're staying within the footprint.
Yes.
Okay, that's my point.
Yeah, under section 7.3, because we're expanding, we're technically expanding the non-conforming because we are building within the front setback.
Well, what about the setback going across the other way?
This one?
Yeah.
So if you were to extend that line, we're still within the side setback.
Where's the property line?
So the property line is this thinner line here.
And when I looked at that, when I was studying that, it looked like the property line went through the old dry cleaning building.
Mm-hmm.
According to the surveyor, it does. So based on deed research done by a surveyor and laying out the property lines, a portion of that existing building is on my applicant's property.
Well, if that's true, then there is no setback because there's overlapping buildings. Is that building coming down?
No. To our knowledge, there's no work planned for them, and we're not proposing to demo that existing building. That gets into a way bigger issue because now you're trying to demo something that you technically don't own that's on your property. So we're just This is going to be left as is. We're building far enough away from it that it's not going to cause an issue during construction. Again, we're just here based on the building commissioner's review of the revised plans.
So you don't meet that side setback?
No, we do, from the property line.
Okay, that's just on, so that's on your property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay, okay.
their building.
I saw that, it's on your bill.
Yeah.
So I thought you must have bought both pieces of property so that you could have all the,
Nope,
okay.
nope. My client's only buying this piece of property here, and I believe this one's already been sold off to someone else.
It's already been sold recently.
So we are still within the side setback if you were to extend that line all the way to the front property.
Okay.
The way that we just show it, we just give you a line that shows all the
It just didn't make
setbacks.
sense that their building was on the property that you bought.
The first time I looked at this, I had to do a double take and go, wait, there's actually a good piece of the building on this property. So,
Charge them rent.
Good luck.
so again, based on the 35 square feet, the plan board has approved this. We feel like we're bettering the area. We're bringing in a new business. We're complete, as part of this project, we are cleaning the site. We did have a walk with conservation on the nice rainy Saturday this past weekend. And with the rain washing out all the snow, there was actually a lot more debris, regrinds, and in general, just junk on this property. That's been there for God knows how long. So as part of this project, we're cleaning up the site. In addition, we are providing stormwater mitigation. Actually, I will flip the board. So everything's graded to come down to catch basins here, which will get piped to this underground basin here. And prior to that, it'll go through a water quality unit. So it's being treated for water quality. It's being treated for peak flows. Engineering and DPW did review this as part of the planning board process and found no issues with the design, and they were okay with it. I do also have the department head review summary that was submitted as part of the ZBA review. I can quickly go through it if the board wants.
I'd say address the concerns briefly, if you could.
So the only real concerns was Board of Health had a question regarding dumpsters, refuse handling, and actually, it's still on this plan. So as you pull down driveway, there is a proposed dumpster here that'll be vinyl enclosed and sealed off. The treasurer and tax collector had a comment regarding tax title and taxes. I believe as part of your closing, that'll be paid then.
Yeah, the seller's gonna take the proceedings from the closing to pay off the tax.
Yep.
I can't imagine they'd let you close otherwise, so.
Yeah.
And other than that, it was building commissioner recommends an approval, economic community development recommends approval. Conservation Commission stated that what we're in front of you tonight for is outside their jurisdiction, which it is. This is the 100-foot buffer from this drainage swale. We're currently in the process with conservation to get approvals from them, but as pertain to tonight's, they had no comments.
Okay.
And fire and police deferred to the planning board, and like I said, we already received approval.
You gonna be on town water and sewer?
Yes.
Great.
Yep. We're maintaining the existing utilities. They come into the front of the house.
Yep.
As part of that, during the construction process, we'll review them. If we find them to be inadequate, we'll work with DPW and engineering, as well as the contractor, to find suitable replacement, whether it's just digging up that service and replacing it right there, or DPW recommends that we tap into a different spot, but that'll be handled at the time of construction. With that, if the board has any additional questions, more than happy to answer.
So the current, this property is under, is owned by a different individual than this proposed development would be?
Yeah, so the property currently is owned by the seller. My client is the applicant.
Okay.
And as part of her closing is to receive all the proper approvals.
So the current owner owns that?
Yep.
That whole piece of property that would include that? There's no additions being made to this property?
Nope.
Okay, and further question, I mean, I know it's a wreck, but that's an old colonial house there. What is happening to that structure? Is it going to be completely demolished or
Nope.
what?
No, it's going to be completely gutted on the inside and redone. And then on the outside, it's really just going to get, I'll call it facelift. It's going to get facelift. So it's not going to be demolished.
Right.
During the planning board proceedings, the historical commission had a comment regarding the chimney. If you drive by and look at that chimney, I believe it's red and there's a granite stone that says 1828.
Yeah.
They had asked that if we, for whatever reason, have to take that chimney down, we salvage that stone, which we're totally okay with doing. Or if we just plan on leaving it, they have no issues. Mm-hmm. But, of course, as you drive by it and you can see how the outside looks, that's all got to get taken. Anything that's rotting will get removed and then get replaced with new facade. And that will be reviewed during the building permit process. There are a set of architecturals that are ready to be submitted to building.
So back to your original, that stippled area, that little triangle.
Yes.
Is really it's obviously a non-conforming lot. So it's before the board because
they're changing something that's already non-conforming.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the setback, but they're not making it more non-conforming.
Yes.
Yes,
Sorry.
it's
Well,
technically an
I guess
expansion.
I'm trying to make a rhetorical question here to
Yeah.
understand the project.
Yes, and when it got brought to my attention, other towns, typically what we would do is go in front of, bring this to the building commissioner and say, look, we know we're building within the setback, but we don't need a variance because we're not increasing the non-conforming. We're not building it out 5 feet beyond what's already there. Mm-hmm. Your town's bylaws have a specific section that this falls under the special permit category. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're here.
Yeah. So again, that stippled section, the stippled triangle thing.
Yeah.
What did you say originally about that?
So
how did you? Yeah.
So it's a 2,000 square foot addition. It's a rectangle. It's nice, easy to construct. Mm-hmm. That space will be used as part of this development. First floor will be full commercial. So I believe, if I remember from the floor plans, that's actually part of the active salon use, right? Mm-hmm. It's part of the stations. Yeah. So on the first floor, it'll be actively used. And then on the above floors, it's incorporated into the apartment units.
Okay. The current house is a two-family house, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and you're adding how many dwelling units to that?
3. 2?
Well, it'll be 3 apartments on top and then the commercial space on the bottom.
All right, so there's 3 total dwelling units.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
John?
Like I say, I mean, we're not making it more
Making it worse, right?
non-conforming, and you know, typically if
That's the acid test.
it is kind of, you know. I mean,
Yes.
I'm not crazy about the
Not
setback.
noticeably more non-conforming, so I'm fine with it. Little triangle.
Mike?
I'm all for it.
Ron?
I already asked my question.
Okay, all right.
You asking me?
No,
Trying to get an
we
idea.
have no butters.
Do we have any members of the
Absolutely.
public?
Nobody's waving their hand.
No butters.
No.
That being the case.
That being said,
Okay, here we go. Make a motion to grant a special permit pursuant to Air zoning bylaw section 7.3.b to allow for the construction in the front setback for the property located at 42 Park Street, Air, Mass.
second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call?
Okay, we'll do a roll call.
Well, it's a hybrid meeting.
It's a hybrid meeting, true.
Good point, John.
Good point.
John Ellis, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Awesome.
You have your permit, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Don't we warn them about the 30-day?
I think Sam just did.
Now there's a hand up.
Pauline, we already voted.
We haven't closed the public hearing.
Yes, I know, Mr. Chair, but if I could just ask a question.
Well, that's kind of,
We closed it.
We haven't closed it.
we haven't
Yeah,
closed
close
it
the
yet.
hearing.
Hand up before you voted. I had my hand up before you voted.
I didn't see it. I looked, I didn't see it.
I know you didn't see it, and I'm not questioning that because I fully support this project as well. But I'd like to ask a question of the board.
Yes.
How does this project of 4 units using town water differ from 71 Sandy Pond Road? And I can just leave that hanging.
Great.
I want that on the record.
We're not going to address that.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
I make a motion, did we close that public?
No, gotta
All right, I
close it.
make a motion, we close the public hearing for 42 Park Street.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, next item on the agenda, board discussion, rules and procedures. You did a nice job on the revisions, Samantha.
It looks great.
It looks really good.
And Marilyn did catch me yesterday. My sections were misnumbered, so the only change since I sent this out was I made sure they went in chronological order.
What?
The sections were misnumbered. They ended up out of order. I fixed it. So there's no written changes. It just now makes sense.
Hand these to Samantha, please.
Okay. All right. Jess, did I take your packet or did I just print 2 of these?
No, we got 2.
Oh, okay.
Two,
I'm
yes.
thinking, what am I doing here?
I asked that earlier.
I asked you, I didn't know if you wanted to write on them or.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That's super helpful.
And I have one for variance as well.
Thank you.
Any comments on the rules and procedures that she did?
I think the reason we didn't vote on it before was.
Because
we
Mike was
wanted-
not here.
That's kinda what I was gonna
That's the only
add.
reason. You made 2 slight revisions. And the only reason, there was a general consensus that we wanted everybody here to take a vote. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and having watched it back, everything you guys commented on looked great. And these
Okay.
came out fantastic.
They did.
I'm really glad we have this.
What's the next step?
So you guys can just vote to approve them.
Yes?
They've already been reviewed by town council. So you guys can vote to approve them. If you want to give me the last few grammar corrections, I can do
Not even
that.
grammar, just little Periods or not periods.
If you want to send me those are fine. Basically, what I will do is, if you vote to approve, I will add a footer that will say approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals on this date. And then every so often, whenever we review them or change something, we'll just add.
Does
to
it
the
go to the
bottom.
select board?
Nope, these are
It's
for
just
you. And
strictly
you-
our guidelines?
Yep.
Okay.
And town council's already checked, and I confirmed we can charge applicants for mailings. They just can't do the
Good.
mailings themselves.
Can't do mail?
They don't do the mailings. We're supposed to
Okay.
do them, but we can charge them for the cost.
And I mean, I, in hindsight, can see why that would be, but they had always provided you with return receipts and
They
everything
did.
else.
They
Yeah.
provided us with things, but
Makes sense.
Are
town
these
council-
posted
we can put them on our webpage
on our
if we
webpage?
want.
That'd be great.
I think so.
I would like to do that. Planning board does it for theirs. So,
Yeah?
I would have Cindy put it up there. I'll just make a final draft and I'll send them all to you. And I'll keep hard copies in my office, and I will also submit a hard copy to the town clerk. She has a ZBA file with all previous versions, and those will go in there.
Good.
General.
Would, the next thing was the hearing application, and I thought we should put those two together.
Yes, I was treating them as two separate documents, but yeah, I'd put them all
Why?
together. Because things would update at different times, like if we ended up with a new zoning district, we'd have to update this, but we wouldn't have to update these.
So 2 separate votes.
Oh,
So two separate votes, same deal, I'd bring this, you know,
All right.
make sure there's a copy.
I thought the application that you did turned out very nice.
So we'll keep her, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she'll keep her.
As long as we
Yes,
can.
indeed. Samantha?
Yes.
Just not related to this, well, related to, is that fee ever revisited? Is it covering the cost of this? Just an idea.
Where does the
I
fee
mean,
base come from?
It seems like it's less expensive than other towns. Not that we should be, more restrictive.
I'm not sure, I mean, I inherited the 165
Yeah.
for a hearing.
Yeah.
I didn't look,
wanna
it didn't seem
complicate things.
wildly out of place for anyone else. We do also charge applicants for the cost of the newspaper ad, which depending on the paper can be anywhere from $200 to $500, depending on,
Are we still running them all in the voice mostly?
try and do the voice. The only problem with the voice is it only runs on Friday.
Fridays.
Yeah.
So I try to do the voice. I do warn them, though, if you don't get it to me in time and you end up in the sun, it is more expensive, and they take that.
Okay.
And then we would charge for the mailings, and obviously some mailings would only be, $100, and some mailings could be, I know for, like the Sandy Pond one, he had to mail everything to Cannon Gate, and that can be hundreds,
Yeah.
so. But in
So-
terms of the 165, that seems to cover.
You don't know where that number came from?
No, that was something that was decided prior to me.
And that's your application
That's just the
fee?
application fee. So that if you want to go before the ZBA, you bring in the application and a $165 check.
Seems actually pretty good.
And
Well, that's what I was just thinking. I'm thinking you might want to check around the surrounding towns. We did it with the cemetery commission. We went to half a dozen different towns and looked at fees and rules and regulations and stuff to adjust ours accordingly. $165 is a drop in a bucket. I mean,
Depending though, right?
well,
It's 165 for a 5-foot setback on a deck. It's
True.
165 for West Main Street.
Well,
Yeah, that's a good
if you want to look at it like that, you could actually step it.
Could look at that.
I can look
You know,
at that.
I mean, you look at that and say, okay, for, I'm not going to say domestic, say residential line adjustments, $150. New build or property development, it could be $500, it could be $300. What was sitting in front of us tonight, I'm pretty sure that was a pretty pricey visit. So I'm just saying, maybe we need to look at that.
But how much is the work effect between a sandy pond and the one we just did for, I mean, it's basically the same process.
For me, the work is just about the same.
Right.
It's writing the notices and putting them all out, but the work is about the same. Doesn't matter the size of the project.
Do we pay the filing fee for the registry, or does the applicant
They
do
do.
that? Okay.
We don't pay for really anything.
So 165
And it's,
might be good for the town. I mean, if they're paying
Does
for
that
the
just go back in the
filing.
general fund?
there's a ZBA fund, so yeah,
Yeah.
goes into,
There's a ZBA fund?
you guys have your own accounts. I think it just
Now we
goes,
get
I think at the end of the year, it's-
T-shirts?
it goes back to the general fund, but there is, there's a postage fund, so what would happen is I'd get the postage, and that goes to an account, and that reimburses, because I use the post machine.
Sure.
And the same thing, any of the legal ad fees I get goes into an account, so we can pay the newspaper.
It's almost like a revolving fund.
It's
where
almost
you
a revolving fund for
refund
those.
from whatever comes in.
Yep.
Okay.
And the only time, there is a little bit of money set aside for the zoning board in that if, say, I were to make a mistake and post something wrong, we'd eat the cost if we had to redo it.
That
But
makes
that's
perfect
because
sense. Yeah,
I
that makes
messed up.
perfect sense.
So, yeah.
Okay. I think we would just look at that.
I am also asking for this year, I did submit a line item for the zoning board to have a supply line. We haven't had that before, and because I'll be doing the mailings, I need to buy labels and
Sure.
Sure.
envelopes as it is for the year. I calculated it out. I'm asking for just over $1,000 in supply money.
Yeah,
And that's also to cover classes for you guys, so that's how you'd all get reimbursed as well.
well, if you think about it, what we've generated would offset that cost, wouldn't it? I mean, I know we did more than $1,000 worth of hearings last year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's just a,
Yes. I mean, and it's a public service.
True.
I mean,
It's an inconvenience fee. You're gonna talk to me, you're gonna pay.
also, all fees are non-refundable. So if you apply and you give me your filing fee and all these things,
Yeah.
you don't get, and then you just change your mind before you even get your hearing, you don't get it back.
So that being the case, with the, I'll call it the administrative fee being 165, the applicant paying for the mailing, the newspaper ad, the filing fee at the registry, it feels like we're doing all right, but I do think maybe in the future we can look at the fee structure of other towns, but I wouldn't have it delay.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No,
No.
never an intention.
Not before we approve it. No. I just thought we should,
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Let's look at other towns.
It's always good to see how we're tracking. Now that we're,
I would like to make a motion to accept the rules and procedures as published. I don't even have a date. What do we have for, there's no date on there.
Well, it would be the date we vote on it. It's the
So it'd
date I
be
would
today?
add. Yeah.
All right.
As submitted.
That's submitted. Okay, that's good.
the state.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Seriously.
I make a motion, we accept the hearing application as written.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There's the hearing application, Samantha.
I'll get you final drafts
Okay,
soon.
Thank you so much.
that was a nice job.
That was
You put a lot of work into this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Board of Health's next.
Board of Health?
I also work for them.
Oh, I thought, what do we do?
No. Board of Health is next.
Wait a minute. Future discussion items, what is that? Did somebody ask for that?
Well, it was, you guys had asked for board discussion, general things we should work on, and I added future items.
Okay.
Something you'd like to work on, something your
Well, yeah, fees.
fees.
Yeah. Might be a good thing to
We
look at.
discussed that out of order.
That's true. That's true. So that's all it was future, anything we wanted to discuss? Is there anything you want to put on the table? Jess?
Just on the notion of evaluating housing and density, there's going to be some projects that I will vote for that will increase density, but that, to me, subjectively, the town gets a clear benefit. And there will be others where
And that needs to be a weighting factor as well. We're supposed to be looking for the good of the town.
Right.
We're looking
Correct.
at exceptions to the zoning law,
Yeah.
which has been approved by the voters.
Well,
If we see that there's a benefit to bending that, or, allowing
Well,
a
it-
change, then we should
Ken
approve
made a
it.
good point. I mean, what they wanted to do is permitted
So just-
by our bylaws.
I just want
With
to,
approval.
hold on, but I just want to be careful that we don't discuss the application once it's
No,
closed.
I'm speaking in
Generalities,
generalities.
okay.
We all agree it's
It
generality.
came from a comment,
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay.
I just
Yeah.
want to be,
so
but if it's allowed, then what is the purpose of the special permit that requires
Yeah,
a
why
vote?
don't they
It
just
seems
put
like
it in?
we did have
What's the purpose of the
that's
board?
we did have quite a discussion on one applicant about subjective views. No question about that. Didn't go well. And we could not, I'm really glad we didn't have to write a decision for that because we couldn't. What we denied was objective. You can't, it was something we couldn't put our finger on. It didn't look right. It didn't feel right. So the fact that that particular aspect was objective and not subjective, it created a little turmoil. So as a board, we are individuals, and we do try to look out for the best interests of the town. Now, how you serve those best interests is predicated by your personal interest, right? So if you think something is amiss or it's not right, that's well within your realm to vote that.
Yeah.
If you agree with something, you're well within your right to vote that. It's your conscience. You're the one's gonna close your eyes at night,
Right.
you know? So no matter how subjective a certain project might be, someone is not going to agree with you. As a whole, we most of us pretty much agree with everything that goes on.
Don't look at me.
Well, you gotta be careful
Loyal
about
to
that,
this.
because no matter how we personally feel about it, there are guidelines of what we need to deny or grant a permit. That's what these things that were presented to us.
That's true.
So, I mean, it's not all like, well, we don't like it because of this or that. It has to fall somewhere that we can justify it by the rules.
Yes, sir.
and I
Okay.
think in all the decisions we've made, we have cited them. And,
Except the one he just talked about.
Yeah.
I don't know though, because we've always gone up.
We went way and above on that one.
But, we look at in all the examples I can think of, the criteria in front of us, and we've pretty much said, whether we granted or denied, we said, character or, whatever it might have been. I don't think any one of the denials we've, or failure
Well, they
to
stand on
grant,
their own merit.
They have, right. Every single one of them has merit to them. So, I think that's,
I like this. I think that's really gonna help us.
Yeah.
I agree.
And going over it the way you did it at the end of the hearing was good.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I liked from the last meeting, and, we can just chew on it for a couple months, was Ken's suggestion out of, what was it, North Andover? Where at the beginning of every public hearing, the chair there laid out the process for a public
Oh,
hearing.
yes.
Because, I think it
Yeah.
could just give us, some order of, okay.
Yeah, well, there is some order in the rules, and again,
Yeah.
like tonight, we did the same thing that we always do. We started our little discussion before we did public hearing, and that's not really the way it's supposed to go.
Well, what we did, well, this is a continuation, but that's neither here nor there. The fact is, when we opened it up after the continuation, the next step was for that applicant's presentation.
Correct.
Then we had our discussion. Then there were no butters, but we had our public input. And I was trying to follow that line of progression.
The public input should have been right after he finished his presentation.
No.
Yes, you look at your rules, that's what it is. Because otherwise,
That we've
we're
already
making,
voted on.
we're making our discussion, and we're discussing how
We're
we...
discussing after them.
We didn't. And we don't typically. Typically, we go to him and then you ask, what do we think? But we can't do that. We have to go to them first, because what we decide, it has to be taken into consideration what they have to say, because it's a hearing. So in my opinion, we need to listen to everybody before we have any internal discussion. That's just...
Well, the way now I don't have it in front of me, but what I remember reading is, okay, he does his presentation, and then after he does his presentation, we have questions and answers.
Oh, we have questions for him during his presentation. That's okay. We can discuss things with him.
I'm talking about a sequence of events. After his presentation, we have questions and answers on his presentation.
Yes.
Then it goes to the abutters. Then, after the abutters, it goes to the public. Then we have our discussion and our vote. That's the way I
I
remember
know,
that
but that's
being
not what
read.
we do. As soon as he's done, you start saying, well, what do you think, and what do you think, and what do you think? It's not what we think at that point. It has to come from the abutters and the public before we start saying what our opinions are.
Okay.
Because it's a hearing,
Yes.
and we have to hear it first before we can start commenting on it.
Okay.
I think it's just for consistency, that's
Just
all.
so you know, Pauline's got her hand up.
Yes, Pauline?
Thank you, Sam. I'm sorry to interrupt your discussion, but I'm trying to simplify this for you. Abutters and public being residents only, obviously, should be the same. So I think as you progress through your new rules, you just ask for public input, abutters and public.
I think that's what it is.
Is it?
I think so, yes.
I think so, John, yes.
Yeah, I think we already did that.
Yeah. But
Okay.
butters first, I think is,
The abutters were first, and then public input.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's perfectly fine as an abutter and as a public input. I think that is a nice way of segueing into the process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But to speak to Mike's point, I think the idea of stating that right at the beginning is helpful
No, that's a great idea.
for all the
It
people
really
that are
is.
sitting there, because they don't know when to speak, and
Do they
then,
do that at planning board?
I don't know.
John, you've said it on a couple of theirs.
What's that?
Do they do that at the planning board?
Do they say at the
Inform
beginning
the
what the
applicants of
procedure
the
is? So
procedure.
Their
public
sequence of
knows?
events?
I think Jeff and Ken at the last meeting inferred that they were making an effort to. Yeah,
Oh,
but
okay,
that they were
okay.
just starting this process just like us.
Yes, Pauline?
To answer your question, Sam, no.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
I will say the Board of Health does. We've had a handful of hearings in which the chair has very clearly stated, this is how we're going to do it, this is the order, we'll take your comments after we've done this, and
So you do that before you open the hearing?
usually he'll open the hearing and then he'll state it.
Okay.
But
Okay,
I think
so-
it doesn't,
So
That's sort of-
what we wrote was,
What we voted on was.
Yes.
already
To be
done deal.
clear.
well, we kind of put it together.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, okay, so you read the public hearing, the applicant does the presentation, the board asks the applicant questions. And then it goes abutters and public questions and comments, and then the applicant's rebuttal to the,
Yes?
and then we have our discussion.
And one of the things you can do, Sam, after they've you've let the public say their piece, you can at any point, or usually after they've all had a chance, is say, we are no longer taking comment, we will discuss now. And that makes the public know, you've said your piece, we've heard what you've had to say, we're taking it under consideration, but it's now our turn. And you can stop them from commenting. You have to let them comment first,
I
but
think that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we don't get this, the proponents and this continuing,
you have to give everyone a chance, but you can after a
so
point
the
just say,
chance
okay.
ends, yes.
And that's what Ken said last meeting, was that, you tell everybody, okay, we've heard the public comment is closed now, and we're gonna make our decision, and then we have our discussion, and then we take a vote.
Okay.
Another advantage to stating it right at the beginning of what's going to happen, if you had if every seat was taken, you
We've
might
had a
have to
couple of
limit,
those.
give them a time limit, like you have 2 minutes.
Well, we had that discussion at one point, a couple years ago. I mean, we had a full house on a couple different meetings.
Yeah.
This is pre-COVID. And I talked to Carly about a time limit. And most of the town was vehemently opposed to putting a time limit on people who want to speak. And I think they get around it at the town meeting by moving the vote, or somebody will throw a flag out.
Yeah.
But we don't have that. It's up to us, really, if we want to do this. But I don't know if it would be counterproductive, or when you tell somebody, all right, I'll listen to what you got to say, but you got 2 minutes. 25. It's like saying 25 words or less. What do you want to tell me?
Well, the only advantage of that is if you had a whole room full and everybody
true.
wants to speak and you want to make sure everybody has time to speak,
And-
you could give them a time limit, but you could also let them speak longer if you wanted. But if you give people so then they think about, okay, I've got to say what I need to do in 2 minutes. And if you really want to hear, if they have something you really want to hear them say, you can let them speak longer, but sometimes if you give people, hopefully this will never happen.
It will.
Rest
assured.
Oh, yeah.
But if that's the case, if everybody wants to speak and you don't want to be here till midnight.
Right. If somebody's bringing up new points
Yeah.
and goes over 2 minutes, that's good. If somebody's repeating the same point, but louder and louder and louder, that's. we
Then
wanna
if they
have
were
a
limited,
mechanism.
then you could say, well, yeah.
And the other thing is that you don't have to engage with them. You let them speak and say, okay, thank you. You don't have to have a back and forth.
So for a future discussion, going back to the special permit process, I guess I'd like more clarity on special permit. We vote on, it's an allowed use, but what's the point of us having to vote on it unless we can take things into consideration and vote yay or nay? If it's automatically allowed, are we just supposed to rubber stamp?
I'm not sure, because that's what it says in the bylaws,
Yeah.
okay? It says it's an allowed use with a special permit. So if it's an allowed use, why does it need a special permit? I don't know that.
So that's my point, because if it's an allowed use with a special permit, that means that
We
the
have to
the board
Because
has to evaluate different
the
aspects.
bylaws aren't specific enough.
Right.
They need to have her go through the permitting process so that we can catch any issues that we see with allowing this permit. And, if you look at this, and it could be something that we don't feel helps the community in any way. And it may even be detrimental to the community in some manner. And that's what it says right there. And of course, talking about stuff like the traffic flow and safety and parking and.
But we really can't do that.
Yes, you can. That's what these say.
someone comes in, and there's a prime example that was here tonight. Someone comes in, they want to subdivide a lot, and they're going to put some buildings on it. I mean, we talk about this, but that can't be. I mean, all these years we've been doing this, it's really not. Is it germane to putting that house on that lot? In some aspects, it is, but that's got to come from the planning board. That doesn't come from us.
The planning board doesn't issue these permits.
No, the planning board doesn't issue the
Other
permits.
than it can't go to them. It has, that's
The planning
why
board
they have the
sends them to us.
ZBA. They send them to us because that's what the zoning bylaws say.
And some special permits are from the planning board.
Yeah.
So there are certain ones that they do, and in certain districts. So in all the new form-based code districts, special permits are through the planning board.
That's
In
right.
the other districts, that it's the zoning board.
But that's okay, because
And that's
that doesn't
fine.
apply to us.
It doesn't apply to us, but.
Because we've had more than one discussion about somebody had an application, more so for variances than for special permits, that, well, we're not going to discuss this because it doesn't have anything to do with the variance.
And that's okay. And
Yeah.
that, especially when you talked about public input,
Yep.
you know, if it doesn't pertain to our discussion, then there's no place for it in this meeting.
So maybe what we could, if you wouldn't mind, Sam,
Yeah.
maybe we could get a response from Danny. Just, have him explain the process a little bit. If he could send us some kind of email that we could discuss at our next meeting during board discussion, just for clarity's sake. And who knows, he might respond to us, and we might have 10 questions after that. But
Yeah.
I think it would be very helpful to have.
What are you asking him?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the question that I would ask is, if certain things are allowable, why do they need a special permit? Was that the
Why do we
essence of
have
your
to
question?
vote, or what is our role? If it's an allowed use, we're just
Why
supposed
does it have to have a special permit?
Right, yeah. And why otherwise, if we have a role, then it's not an automatic process. It goes through evaluations on different criteria, which will differ from site to site.
I would almost bring up that, I don't think it's out of place to bring up the first applicant. Almost thought it was his right to have it, so long as he presented all the 24,000 square feet, that he had a right to have the permit granted, that we would just rubber stamp it.
Yeah, and if it's a rubber stamp rule.
Yeah.
But-
I don't know.
I think that's because he was looking for more of a concrete explanation as to why it was denied.
Yeah. And so one of the things that, as we've gone through the rules and regs thing, I will try and do in future meetings, and hopefully it'll make your job a little easier, is the finding of facts. I know it was part of the rules and regs.
Yes.
And so I tried to do that tonight
Right.
with,
That was-
when Mr. Diskin asked, but I'll try to formalize it.
Yeah.
I'll come with something at a future meeting and present it to you guys. Hopefully, again, it'll make your job easier,
Yes.
and it'll just be more clear for the
Somebody
applicants.
have to-
Yeah, I know, and it's
Knock
it's
down,
not,
drag
it's
out
not you.
meeting. What
you know.
did they say?
So,
Go through
There's
all
been a
the-
few that are
the
like, oh, I
notes
don't.
And, wonder what the reason why the permit was allowed or denied.
right.
So it's good to,
And the-
in the presence of one and all, to make those
Right.
statements at least.
Those are the findings of this board and as a whole.
And the clearer the findings are, obviously the better decision I can write, and the better the decision, the better defense we have if something ever comes up. Because part of this is, we don't want anything to happen, we don't want it to get appealed or go
When it gets
to
appealed,
land
it goes-
court or any of those things, but if it does make it there, we want to be solid enough
When it
that
gets
we're not in
appealed, it
trouble.
goes to Superior Court, is that correct, or does it go to Land Court?
Depends on what it is.
Because I'd always been told that whatever we do, it has an appeal process, but an appeal process is Superior Court. Remember,
It could be
they used
land
to tell
court.
us that all
It
the
could
time.
be,
It could be land
it could
court.
be,
Really?
it's usually
I
land
think,
court.
conservation is, for us, it's Superior Court, but where you have disputes over land use or land ownership or anything like that, it would be land court.
And depending on the dispute.
And
could also
40B
change.
has a good section about the finding of facts
Yep.
requirements.
It's a lot tighter
Yeah,
But
and
yeah, I'll have
Tighter.
Danny.
with the 40B.
the density issue is going to be a thing for me
Yeah.
with
How do you,
Ron,
well,
but-
how do you,
But if there's, on the other hand, if there's an affordable housing component to it, then for me, there's a clear benefit. There's something positive for the town in that. If it's just
I don't,
yeah.
I can't wrap my head around an issue with density. No, I understand the concept, I really do. That's not where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with it is, if you look at the town, the population of the town, the size of the town, the diversity of the town, the people who want to live in this town, because of the way the town is run, the way the town is viable. I mean, the property that's in this town, the people buy it to develop it, unless they're building it for themselves, and that's a rarity now. So our property, our density, population density, doesn't seem to be as high as surrounding towns.
Oh, no.
It is, but
Way over.
If you look, Ayer is 880 people by the 2020 census, 880 people per square mile. Littleton, 610. Groton, 340.
Well, what are the
Harvard-
square miles?
Yeah,
Per square mile, that's
Residents per
it's the
square.
Calibrated.
population
divided by the
by
area.
the area, so
Right.
it takes into account.
But we're
that's-
markedly smaller in
Yeah, but,
area.
Right, exactly.
but.
We're a
yeah.
dense little town there.
Yes.
Or a
Okay.
spot on
Yeah.
the,
So-
if you go to the zoning.
Shirley's 467, Lunenburg 430, Pepperell 500, Bolton 280. I know there are different zoning
Yep.
things, but our zoning bylaw, as I think, was written retrofitted to what was the existing conditions here.
Do you think that we should have a moratorium on construction?
Not,
That's almost,
Can't.
that's
I would
almost
think
what
that would have to
you're,
go to the planning board.
yeah.
well, no, I mean, if
No.
you're opposed to any increase in density,
I'm not,
then that says that you're,
well,
you don't want to build out anymore.
no, what I think how it works in my head, like the state average is 891 per square mile for the whole state.
Yeah.
We're about at the state average. I do see the real need for more affordable housing in Massachusetts.
Yeah, but
I
not
do
here.
feel, well, no, it's not in my
Because
backyard.
Jess was very supportive of the 40B.
40B.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
not, it's
I
not
gotta-
that. It's like, I don't see our role as helping developers maximize private profit where there's no affordable component that contributes. Now,
Well,
the,
how do you think we would prohibit someone from using the land that they have the way they want to?
we can't unless
Well,
it's.
we
a-
do.
No,
Well-
unless it's a special permit,
So
which is
long
really,
as-
what is our role with a special permit?
So they have
for allowable
rights.
use?
No, we're
Yeah.
talking about by right they might have it. We can't
Yeah.
prevent them from
true.
exercising their rights.
That's true.
So in the.
When they're
yeah.
trying to change, when they're trying to do something beyond with the zoning, the current zoning thing is we're going against the will of the people supposedly, right?
If I was to think
Consider-
about it, this piece of property here, there was 48,000 square feet of property there. That means technically someone could put 4 one-family lots there.
Though the way it was shaped though, because.
Well, I'm just doing the math.
Yeah,
Okay.
But
Yeah,
we
So-
shouldn't,
No.
we shouldn't discuss this, guys.
Okay.
We
I
shouldn't
gotta put the
discuss that.
kibosh on it, yep.
yeah.
We
But-
can't do that. We can't discuss a particular application.
Right.
Particular applicant.
We just cannot.
So it's just,
That's the same,
Yeah.
the point I was trying to get at was, it's the same population change, density change. So how do you?
So this is where, to me, this is where we have a citizen's role to look at each case. Now, you know, it is, I was thinking of the image of a Monopoly board when
Okay.
we were driving over, and it's like, okay, if you build little houses, and then the next thing is you take down the houses and put up big hotels. It's not a perfect analogy, because you only put up one big hotel on it.
Right.
You know, but that's the thing I want to be a little bit of a braking mechanism on as a resident. That, is this the area to do that in? Is this the area, you know, is this the area? So it's not, I don't have a blanket thing. I know our population density's going to increase as everywhere else, but Air One has been doing its part statewide. But regardless of that, in the areas where we have discretionary, we have to vote, we have discretionary approval, that's where I am going to be thinking about, okay, that in relation to what is the town getting, and it's not just taxes, but other things. Your point about it's very visible, well, no, we can't talk about that. But, so it's, you know, that's where I am right now.
What do you think's what do you think will happen when they put the 180 affordable housing on? What's that gonna do to the population density?
That's going to increase it.
Yes,
but-
it will, exponentially.
But affordable housing.
Right, and if that's Jess's concern, it's fully affordable.
Yeah,
affordable.
fully affordable, permanently affordable.
Yeah.
So we,
And I don't know, I'm not a great mathematician, but, you know, the town has to meet a certain, the 10% affordable housing out of its whole base. So it seems to me if you're increasing the non-affordable housing, the market rate housing, that increases what you have to match, what you have to bring up on the affordable housing. We haven't-
Sure does.
I also think that
Yeah.
there is some small a effect for these two-family homes. Because if you put in a single-family home, it's going to be $650,000 to $750,000.
Yeah.
But if you're putting in a two-family, they're only going to get $250,000 to $300,000 per unit.
I bet they get
Not
more than that.
anymore.
Look at Central,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
but
those were 550.
I agree with you. I completely agree with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Cost per unit
I'm
is,
just saying that it's more affordable.
Yeah.
And the other departments in this town, they're all trying to get more housing into Ayer.
But what other departments? Because there's the Affordable Housing Committee.
Yeah,
Affordable
community
Housing Trust.
development, and, you know, all of these people. I'm not talking about
Yeah.
affordable housing, because that's very specific.
Right.
But they have the other development committees
Yeah.
and, you know. But when I watch
Economic
these,
development.
you know, when I watch all these town meeting, or these committee meetings, they're all stressing to get more people and more development in town.
so I love the way this conversation's going, and I think it's super important that we have it.
And keep going another time.
I would love to. My wife has a meeting for her master's program
Yeah.
this evening at 8 o'clock, so I hate to.
Okay.
But we should take this up next week with Danny's response.
is this being on the,
Yes.
once the public meeting closes, should
No.
we have to be exposed to the whole town?
Yeah.
Just-
Yeah.
It stays on until we adjourn.
That shouldn't be so.
It's still an open
It should
meeting.
only come to the public.
It's still an open meeting. We don't, I
just make sure the
haven't
doors
seen
don't lock.
anything where we've had a reason to go into like executive session.
I don't even think we can.
Oh, yes,
No,
we can.
you have, you can go into executive session, but there's 7 specific reasons you can
Exactly.
do it. And
Exactly.
It's an open meeting law
If
thing.
you
It's an open
wanted to
meeting.
slam you for,
yes,
that's one exemption.
personnel.
What's our next,
Okay. You want to
what's
close?
our next meeting?
Our next meeting is I have it marked.
February?
She gave us a
February 21st is the next meeting.
Do we have any applications?
They have until the 30th. I do know of one, she's working on it. Okay. She was hoping for the January one, but she's hoping, and there's another possible.
You need to vote to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn at 7:49.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.